What is up, everyone? Video by popular demand. As you guys know, we did the 1.8T swap in Jordy's car. It's basically finalized how it sits, you know, finalized, but cars are never finalized. But we got requests for a lot of people asking us to do a price breakdown of the entire swap, kind of like how we did in Austin's car.
We're here to piss a lot of people off.
We're here to piss a lot of people off to show how out of reality YouTubers are. No. So here's the thing, right? We made a big point about this being such a cost-effective swap, and now is the time to really figure out if it was. Now, there was so much more to this swap that we enjoyed other than the price. When it comes to just accessibility, fitment, feel, power delivery, it checks so many boxes. Price point is just one of them, so keep that in mind, right? We put a 1.8T in this thing because Jordy wanted the turbo 4-cylinder, right? There's other swaps you could do here. Maybe they might be more cost-effective. Maybe turboing the stock engine might be more cost-effective. I don't think so, but you know what I mean? Like, we're not trying to say this is the best swap, but this is what Jordy wanted. And I think this checked the boxes off better than anything that we could imagine. It really surprised us. And well, today we're gonna be talking about the cost of it to see if it's something you might wanna do or if it even sounds worth it. Every time we pop this hood, I'm still blown away at how freaking cool this thing is.
The engine bay is incredible.
Honestly. Oh, it looks so freaking good. The way we're gonna do the price breakdown is a little different. When we did Austin's car, we calculated every freaking nut and bolt for the build. And of course, it sounded crazy and it pissed off a lot of people. I mean, we went anywhere from the chassis to the lug nuts to the shift knob. We calculated every piece of it. For this car, we're gonna focus mainly on the swap. And the hard part is, obviously, being a YouTube channel, we did have a couple things sponsored. We're gonna count those as retail. And we also had a lot of stuff laying around since, well, we've done a lot of projects. So I'm gonna keep that in mind, so also keep that in mind for yourselves. Here's my list, the master list. So, you know, plus or minus some dollars. I try to be on the higher side, honestly, just because I don't wanna I'm not trying to smooth anyone over. I'm not trying to hide anything. I want this to be transparent. And I could do, the problem is I could do disclaimer after disclaimer, but I'm gonna shut up and get after it. So, where did we start, Austin? The long block. Well, of course, prices engine could vary quite massively, right? We're working with marketplace here. You can get a crazy deal. Your friend might have one in the garage like Brian, we can go steal one from, or you might have to just pay freaking retail because you're eager and the guys around you kind of suck. But Jordy was able to score this engine for $350. So we got quite lucky on the long block itself. So of course, buying any used engine, any 20, 25-year-old used engine marketplace is a gamble. We took a gamble on this cheap engine. We got lucky because not only has it been running great, but it also had aftermarket rods in them, which really allowed us to push a little bit heavier on the swap, which was huge. Next major component is gonna be the transmission. Now, mind you, the first list we go down is gonna be what we paid for and what we did, and then we'll kind of talk a little bit more after about what it's obviously gonna cost. So, we're going off the assumption that you already have a manual BMW and you want to swap out your M series engine or whatever. And so we already had the transmission. So for us, technically, the trans was $0 for the project. Next piece of puzzle is marrying the engine, the trans, and getting it into the chassis. So of course, the engine mounts we made, right? Very inexpensive pieces of metal. That one's hard to put a price on it, so I kind of clustered everything together. But we did go with the more expensive clutch because we wanted to make sure that it could hold to an optimal power level so we weren't sealing out right off the rip. So I kind of clustered all of that, so it's to be about $1,200, and that's definitely more on the expensive side. We did have the drive shaft and the shifter since this was already a manual swapped car, but we did have to buy a drive shaft adapter since it was a Get Drags before, so that was $150. I'm gonna try and not spare any dollar here. We had to get the long block ready, right? We had to do the timing components. We had to do the manual tensioner. We had to do seals, water pump. We had to do an oil pan. And well, we added a head package to this thing and a fancy valve cover. So that being said, all of the engine parts combined, that was even going with a brand new alternator and brand new tensioner. That was about $800, which to be fair is not bad at all. The head package, which obviously was really nice, but not needed to get your car together, that was a little pricey. That was about $1,500. Well worth every penny though. Drivetrain is in, engine's ready to go. The next part of the puzzle is getting manifolds on your engine. So the intake manifold, we got this thing off of Facebook Marketplace. That was 20 bucks, so we can count that. On top of that, we got ourselves a really nice exhaust manifold, but that thing was only $350. Did I tell you the final amount yet? I did, didn't I? Yeah, you did. That was a dumb move. I should have made you guess. Next thing to get this thing together is we got the intake on, which means we can get the fuel system together. How much do you think the fuel system cost?
$925.
Ooh, close.
I feel like I'm on an episode of The Price is Right now.
we should get one of those stands. Yeah. Fuel system is something we splurged on a little bit. This was something we wanted to make sure that Jordy wasn't capped out, right? We did a lot of things on this engine that allowed us to not have to redo anything as we upgrade the engine itself and create more power. So that's where we kind of splurged a little bit.
You got to give and take somewhere.
Yeah, I just wanted Jordy to have something nice that he can grow into. All right.
That's the nicest thing I have.
We count the fuel system as $1,000, right? We have new injectors, we have a fuel rail, we have a fuel pressure regulator, and we have a pump. So let's start connecting things, right? So we got our manifolds on, we got our fuel system on. What's next? We gotta get our hot side on. So turbo, once again, something we splurged on. There's many options for turbos. We'll talk about that later on. But for us, we went with a GTX 2868 or 67 RS. I got him a nice turbo because I wanted that thing to last. I want him to have, well, high capabilities of power because I know he'd get excited and want to turn it up.
Yeah.
The turbo itself was about $2,200, but then of course we wanted to go with an external wastegate to match with our manifold, and this was about $350. We talked about it. That was one of the biggest purchases of the whole project. That thing, of course, you could cheap out quite.
You could cut that cost down by 90%
And we're gonna talk about this afterwards. I don't want to hear. All right, I want to give my boy some nice stuff. So that was a big chunk of the project there. So now the engine's starting to get pretty full up. We have the accessories on, manifolds, turbos, all that good stuff. We got to start connecting it to systems. So what we have is our intercooler and we have our radiator. These were two things that we had, right? So this is just the BMW M Series radiator, which we had laying around. Then we had this intercooler laying around from whatever project. You can count if you had to buy them new, obviously you can count probably the radiator for like $300, intercooler probably $200. But for us, I'm gonna give it a good old 0 because we had it.
Reduce, reuse, recycle.
That really well. I don't think there's any sacrifices. I mean, this thing stays cool, which is sick. Continuing on with that, the cooling system, we had to get aftermarket water necks. We had to get an aluminum water neck for the front and rear, and we did have to modify them. That being said, the aluminum water necks themselves were very, very cheap. They were, I put it at $100. They were honestly like $40 for both. But Spoon did modify them. And then of course, we bought radiator hoses and I put that as like $140. That was on the high side. That finishes up the cooling system. So next thing, of course, is we need a full exhaust for this thing. All right, we put a turbo on it. We didn't want to use Jordy's old ratty exhaust. So for this, I just had to put materials down since we have an in-house fabricator. That one is something you could talk about fabbing up with your friends. You know, Jordy could weld some pipes together. They might not look that pretty, but.
Oh man, that thing would be booger central. I would tack that thing.
So I put materials down and it was about $600 in materials. All right, nice. You didn't want a muffler, so it saved me like 200 something bucks. So,
Hey.
all right, boys. Next expensive thing: ECU and wiring. Oh boy, everyone's panicking. Right, wiring sucks. ECUs are terrifying. Jordy, what do you think? We splurged on the ECU because once again, I wanted a product that Jordy can use no matter what he does to this drivetrain, something that will last forever and something that he'll never grow out of. And so we went with the Link Fury. How much is a Link Fury?
$20.75.
Yeah, that's a big one. If you buy it on Black Friday, we bought it on Black Friday, so no, I put full cost. But ECU is expensive. You know, we'll talk about other cheaper options later on, but also wiring. Now wiring's lucky because Jordy knows a guy who can make wiring harnesses. So
That dude's so handsome.
I put the materials for the engine harness. And the engine harness, I did cheat a little bit because I've got a couple sub harnesses that were pre-made by Wiring Specialties, which were obviously a little bit more expensive than just buying raw materials. But even with that, all the connectors, the loom, and the sub harness is about $350. So you did pretty good there, kid.
I love that guy.
Now with the wiring, we had a couple functions that we had to add on. We had sensors, we had the boost control, we had the lines. I put all that stuff about $400. That little stuff, it adds up. It'll get you. We're getting close, Jordy. What do you think's next? Don't look at my cheat sheet.
I don't know what you went through yet.
So next is intercooler piping. Once again, we got an in-house, we got a Spoon. So he banged up some intercooler piping for us beautifully, quickly. So I charged for the price of materials. I did $260 for aluminum piping, plus couplers. Not too bad. And then to sum it up, we have some miscellaneous stuff like hoses, clamps, all that nonsense that I know I'm gonna forget about, which I put in for $250. And then I put $200 in for fluids because no one realizes how much money and fluids add up and stuff like that. The big one is tune. Luckily, I charged Jordy a whopping $0 for this tune. So I think you did pretty good on that one, Jordy.
I don't know, dude. I did the tune. I don't know what
You tuned it? About. Yeah, I forgot. Jordy was my stunt double that day. He tuned it. That basically covers it. Obviously, there's some small things we're gonna miss here and there. You could probably add on you could add on $800 if you wanted to for miscellaneous random stuff, but I tried to be on the higher side of things. So,
Drum roll, please.
Our slot cost, Jordy. This is retail for everything.
What was it, 12?
12.
12.
12 grand. They're gonna hear 12 grand and be like, oh, it's not a budget friendly swap. No, here's the thing, right? We've done so many swaps. I would say, besides actually putting full forged internals in this car, we have a very sorted car. Like, this thing has amazing parts on it. It came out amazing. It doesn't have a ceiling for everything. We have a fuel system that can make up to 600. We have a full exhaust, intercooler. We have a good turbo. We have everything we need to make good power and to maintain those power. So this is like a peak version of the swap costing 12 grand, which is pretty solid. So if you take, let's say you wanted to SR swap something, we'll use that as a baseline, right? You're gonna get 6 grand just to get the engine and trans. Well, you have a weak trans, you have to buy a clutch, you have to buy a turbo, you have to buy a manifold, and you gotta buy all the management, and it adds up a lot quicker than this. So for 12 grand, as much as that sounds a little ridiculous to people, that is definitely in the cheap range of having a 400 plus capable setup in a car. That being said, huge shout out to our sponsors for making this happen to allow us to go. I'm not trying to hide anything. Like, we're gonna be transparent. Like, we've worked really hard to build this to be able to acquire sponsors to make this happen, right? Sponsors aren't just people who want to give you stuff because they like you. It's because it's a trade, right? And that's the transparency of it all. So we've been very lucky. We were able to extend our resources and get some products on here. If I added up how much sponsored stuff we got on this, we got very lucky on this one. I would say it would cut it down a lot. I mean, I could calculate the sponsored price, but I don't, is that weird?
I think it's interesting.
I think the transparency would honestly be nice.
Yeah, no, it's huge. I mean, like, we've worked for this, you know.
This is what we do for a living.
This is what we do, right? So that's it is what it is. That being said, I did 2 other calculations that you guys might like. So I did what I think is a solid minimalistic swap, and then I did the ultra minimalistic swap, which is how I saw a lot of the younger guys in Europe that did it. When we proposed this swap idea, we hit up a lot of guys out in Europe who have done the swap in E36s, younger guys that I saw just made it happen, and their cars looked very exciting to drive, and I thought they did a really good job using what they got, and I could tell how cheap they were able to do it for, which makes it a little more exciting for you guys. There's a couple of things I skimped out on, right? So the whole thing is, I picked an average price for the engine. I picked 600 bucks for the engine, right?
Fair.
That's fair. I think that's average price for these engines. I saw engine and trans for 600 bucks multiple times, right? Yeah. So we're gonna say 600 bucks for the engine. Now with that, I'm gonna say that for engine parts, they did 400, right? Because really, if you could do a timing belt, a couple seals, a water pump, it'll get you there. Valve car gasket, and I would say you could probably do that cheaper than $400 to be fair. Easily. And that's 400 bucks with a manual tensioner. You know, like, you don't have to buy a new alternator. You don't gotta buy a new idler pulley. That's the fun thing about the swap is honestly the engine refresh bars are really cheap, and all the random stuff, like you saw, you can get them in junkyards. If it fits in your pocket, it's gonna
You know it's free.
All right, I'm not gonna sound like a scumbag right now, but that being said, we'll move on to the next piece of that would be the swap kit, right? You gotta get an adapter kit, you gotta get a clutch. I did 1,200 bucks, right? So I matched it to ours. So if you wanna use our clutch, make engine mounts like us, 1,200 bucks. The only thing I did add though is the ZF transmission, because I'm not gonna assume that homeboy has one sitting around, right? So if you got an auto car, ZF transmissions are like 600 bucks.
On a good day.
Go on Marketplace, I found one for 600 bucks, so I'm gonna say it's 600 bucks. And we kept things nice and simple, and I'll bang through this. So I did 300 bucks for a drive shaft, assuming you don't have a drive shaft. Kept it simple, assuming that you're gonna want to do like a KO4 stock turbo. There's other options. There's like eBay versions of KO4S's and stuff like that you could do for sub 800 bucks, and that will include a manifold and a turbo. And you could dude, if you wanted to go KO3, you can get it for free. And that will get the thing turboed. So on top of that, I still put like $400 for the fuel system if you want to do a big upgraded pump, and if you want to do some like OEM type or larger injectors. The price of the radiator for 250 bucks, radiator hoses. I added all that stuff up. I did $600 for the exhaust still, 500 bucks for wiring, since you could buy a pre-terminated 1.8T harness online for 500 bucks if you don't want to do wiring. And I found tuned ECUs on eBay for about $300. You could buy a pre-tuned ECU that will plug right in. That would be a stock Volkswagen ECU, which are very tunable, right?
That's cool. Works in Brian's car.
Exactly. So I try to keep those costs down. Now the random stuff in between, I'm assuming you're using OEM sensors since you're on a stock ECU. Not doing flex fuel, nothing crazy. I still charge $200 bucks for intercooler piping, because if you want to just find some tubes laying around, get some random stuff on eBay, use some clamps, you're good to go. I did add $250 for random hardware and $200 bucks for fluids, and that still comes out to be about 7 grand. Now that, of course, is me talking about the transmission, a more expensive clutch kit, and some random bits in between with some upgrades. But the nice thing about this, everything is, besides the adapter kit, everything is sub $600. 7 grand sounds like a lot of money for a swap, but the problem is if you calculate any of your project cars, even if there's really not much done to it, you'd be really surprised at how much money it took to get where you are. Everything is sub $600-800, which means you could build it paycheck to paycheck. That's the big thing, right? If you have these giant lump sums of money, it's hard, you know, it's hard to save up money. If you have it sitting around, you end up using it. But if you could pull $300 out of every paycheck, you can make a lot of steady progress on the car and have it built together before you even realize it, because it does take a long time to build.
But if you could build this within a year, say?
Yeah, I think you do pretty good.
That would be great.
So that's the nice thing. There's no major big cost to any of this unless you wanted to do a full standalone, you know, a big aftermarket turbo or a full fuel system. So you're able to piece it together without even realizing that you're spending the money.
What did you just say?
I think I spent 7 grand at Dunkin' Donuts this year.
You're gonna say, oh, like, well, you bought everyone. You know,
I know.
Think of how much money you spend in fast food a month. Even if you don't think you spend a lot, you spend a lot more than you think. And in the final form of this, I have a super budget friendly, or I'll say make it happen price, right? So like I said before, we saw a lot of younger guys in Europe that were just making the swap happen with parts they have laying around, and I was very impressed with these guys. There's one, I'll put his Instagram right here, that gave us a lot of insight to the swap before we even got into it and gave me a lot more confidence on it, and I applaud him because you could tell he just made this work. And so this being a little bit, you know, looser on some things and more expensive others, I came out to a total cost of $3,800. That might still sound like a lot of money for an engine swap, but at the end of the day, like I said, it's all small purchases, right? Really, the most expensive thing I can think of on a budget-friendly swap like his would be the clutch and adapter kit setup. Everything else is like $200, $300 purchases. That allows you to kind of build the car at a pace while spending small amounts of money, so you don't, it's boy math, right? You got to trick yourself into thinking you're not spending a lot of money. It's all boy math.
It's like me with Dunkin' Donuts every day.
You're like, it's only $8 a day, but then you sit down and you're like, oh my God, that was a lot of money this year. This is using OEM harness and modifying yourself, because there's plenty of write-ups online. This is using a stock KO4 turbo where you can get from your homie. You know, this is assuming you already have the transmission in your car. Still regasketing the engine in some form. You'll see a lot of guys, you know, they use used hoses that are in the back of his buddy's shop, you know, random intercooler piping from like the stock cars, and we've seen it happen. So if you guys wanted to do this in your car, I would say don't be scared of it. I don't want to, like, these numbers honestly sound ridiculous. It sounds like a lot of money, but if you break it down, it's actually super minimalistic. You're not gonna swap it. Like, Jordy, if you got this car and even trying to be cheap, putting an M50 back in it, it's still gonna be a lot more money than you think.
This and the M50 pretty much equate very similar in price if you do this in the cheapest way.
And if you do the M50 in the cheap way.
Yeah.
That assuming, essentially. I hate talking numbers because everyone wants to argue it, but it's true.
It's true, but I mean, everyone's different. You can cut costs in 15 different ways, depending on who you are. Realistically, do you need a ZF? No, you could do this the cheapest way and put a get rag behind it if that's what you have. Like,
which is you just sold one for $100, right?
Yeah, you can get them for dirt cheap. Like, there's a lot of ways you can save money.
Or you could be a YouTuber and throw money at it. That being said, I am very convinced you could do this swap for under $2,000. Like, if you really nickel and dime it and you really DIY it, and that is ridiculous. To turbo 4-cylinder swap a car for under $2,000, you can make it happen.
Anything's possible.
All right, to sum it all up, $12,000 sounds like a lot of money, but what I love about this swap is it has probably one of the lowest entry costs to any swap I can come up with, right? Because if you think about it, you could take any engine, any swap to any level you want to, right? You could put $40,000 into a D series if you want to, you know what I mean? So we knew what level we wanted Jordy to have, so we jumped to that level. But what I love about it is the entry, right? The engine's cheap, the components around it can be really cheap. And so you can get this thing together, get yourself a running driving car, and then upgrade it as you go on and justify it, right? Because it really knocks anything else out of the water. Because if you think about anything from like the EcoBoost to a K series to an SR to, I don't care what other engine you think about it, the entry cost will be high, right? And the entry cost of this is so low to just get together. And if you want to upgrade later on, you could justify it. I mean, you could just use your stock radiator, you could use whatever you got, make it all happen. We've seen the boys do it. I think that's what I love about it so much. And on top of it, it fits in here so good, it looks good, it feels good, it was easy to do, it checks off all the other boxes. Of course, guys, if you want to swap anything into your car, I think you'll be ignorance might be bliss on some engine swaps. If you start calculating how much it takes to swap anything in a car, I think you will be quite deterred. So do the boy math thing and just get after it. It's true though, like it's so easy to be like, oh no, this swap would only be this much money, but you gotta think of the small stuff and everything around it. So for now, Jordy, would you regret any of it?
Not a chance.
Is there anything you would do differently?
Yeah, more boost.
All right, fair. I think, well, for us, kind of just winging the swap and getting after it, I think there's not really much I would rather change, to be honest. I mean,
I think it feels amazing.
Yeah.
It's not about the size, it's how you use it. And that's a fact.
And you're using that 1.8.
Oh yeah. I know 1.8 when I see 1.8.
it's average size, okay? It's average size. It's actually kind of big, all right? There's a lot of guys out there with 3 cylinders, okay?
That's valid.
I hope this didn't deter you, but motivated you into potentially getting into your next engine swap. But for now, you guys know the deal. Like, comment, subscribe. Stay tuned for more content. We'll see you guys very shortly.